Thank you. A bureaucratic bungle has stopped the $16 billion Carmichael coal mine in central Queensland. While green groups are hailing it as a victory, both state and federal governments are working to have the project go ahead.
The country's biggest coal mine stopped by two of the country's smallest native animals.
This is a very dark day for all those who were counting on a swift go-ahead.
Federal Environment Minister Greg Hunt granted environmental approval for the massive $16 billion Adani project in July last year. But his department didn't give Mr Hunt documents relating to the vulnerable yakka skink and ornamental snake. So today the federal court ruled the original approval invalid.
I think it's very concerning that Greg Hunt is referring to Australia's environment laws and his failure to follow them as a technical glitch.
This is a huge opportunity now for Adani to walk away from this disastrous proposal that Queenslanders don't support.
Not all Queenslanders agree.
Adani will bring jobs to a very needed area in Queensland, in central Queensland, and we look forward to those jobs being produced.
They may have won the battle, but I can tell the Green Movement right now they will not win the war on this.
Both state and federal governments want the project to go ahead. Mr Hunt's department says it could take up to 8 weeks to sort out the paperwork, but there's no need for the entire approval process to be restarted. Green groups, though, beg to differ.
He does have to look at the new information about Adani's environmental record, and he does have to look at the information about the true economic costs and benefits of this project.
Patrick Condren, 7 News.
A lizard and a snake have brought plans for Australia's largest mine to a halt, at least for now. Conservationists are celebrating after the federal court set aside the approval of the Carmichael coal mine in Queensland's Galilee Basin. But the mine's Indian owner and the Environment Department claim it's only a technical hitch.
Adani means 10,000 jobs for Queensland workers.
All Adani's claims for the Carmichael mine are big, but for environmental groups, at least today, a big legal victory. Thanks to these small creatures, the yakka skink and ornamental snake, successfully harnessed in court.
Australia's environment laws have protections for threatened species, and Greg Hunt failed to follow those laws.
The Federal Environment Minister approved Carmichael last year. In the huge Galilee Basin coal reserves, it's a $16 billion project, including a rail link to terminals at Abbott Point. The Mackay Conservation Group argued in court that Mr Hunt failed to take account of departmental advice on protecting the two creatures.
And it's very worrying that it's taken a case by a community group like ours to really show the flaws in this process and the rubber stamping that's gone on to approve this mine.
This is a huge opportunity now for Adani to walk away from this disastrous proposal.
There's dismay within the industry and government.
There is not unending patience for projects like this, and New Delhi is watching very closely.
We ask the federal government to sort this out as quickly as possible.
A technical matter, says the Federal Environment Department. Its updated advice to the minister should take 6 to 8 weeks. Adani, meanwhile, is defiant, saying it's confident that existing conditions are robust and appropriate once the technicality is addressed. Not so fast, says the conservation group's lawyer.
Since he last approved this mine, back late last year, there is an enormous amount of new material and new evidence.
Activists have previously attacked the project on other environmental and cultural grounds. Analysts say such complaints are why the project struggles to raise finance, leading to ongoing speculation about its future. Raina Sarampai.
Tonight, vulnerable species halt a giant Queensland coal mine. The crime watchdog takes over the investigation into the former boss of the police fraud squad. Premier gives Queensland a gold star for NAPLAN, but results tell a different tale. And research shows the contraceptive pill offers select cancer protection. Good evening. Welcome to ABC News Queensland. I'm Karina Carvalho. The state's controversial $16 billion Adani Carmichael coal mine has hit another hurdle, with the Commonwealth agreeing to withdraw approval for the mine. At issue is the protection and consideration of 2 vulnerable species in the proposed mine area. Conservationists are claiming victory, but the mining industry says activists have benefited from a bureaucratic blunder.
Never underestimate the power of a skink. Because of the extremely secretive Yakka skink and the ornamental snake and their protection by law, the Federal Environment Minister's approval for a mega coal mine in central Queensland has been withdrawn.
Greg Hunt failed to follow those laws. He didn't follow Australia's environment laws and didn't give adequate protection to the species that would be impacted by the Carmichael mine.
The Environment Department says advice to the Minister about their protection should have been provided in a particular way. This is a technical administrative matter, it said.
Because of some paperwork glitch in the department, they can't demonstrate that the Minister physically cited the documents around the conservation of those 2 species.
What does Adani mean to Queensland?
Adani is the Indian company that had and has now lost approval for Australia's largest coal mine, a rail link and associated infrastructure. In a statement it said, "It should be noted the approval did include appropriate conditions to manage the species protection of the Yakka skink and ornamental snake."
It would be a huge tragedy for the Australian economy and the Queensland economy to allow the activist tactics to prevail.
The Environment Department expects it will take up to 8 weeks to redo its advice and for the Minister to reconsider his final decision. The Environment Defender's Office says the Minister has to have a very thorough look.
And he does have to look at the new information about Adani's environmental record, and he does have to look at the information about the true economic costs and benefits of this project.
While conservationists hate the project, the Queensland Government wants it.
We're extremely disappointed that there's been this delay to Adani in the Galilee Basin.
The Government wants it approved as quickly as possible.
Reporter John Taylor joins me now with more on this story. John, what's been the response from the Minister Greg Hunt today?
Well, Karina, the Minister says he's made no mistake, nor was there any bureaucratic bungling. Rather, there was a prudent, cautious decision in the face of a court requiring a procedural step that it hadn't sought before. But one person's proper process is another person's lawful proper process.
And John, when is the new decision likely? Because there are other doubts hanging over this project.
Well, the Environment Department says 6 to 8 weeks. The Minister has flagged it may well be quicker than that, but a lawyer for the Mackay Conservation Group says that his task will not be simple, easy or quick. And certainly Queensland Greens Senator Larissa Waters says the Minister now has a chance for a fresh look at what she calls an absolute dog of a proposal, especially given new evidence that has come to light in another court case. And there remains speculation about the financial viability of this project, especially given the falling coal price. Karina?
John?
Until today, chances are most of us had never heard of the Yakka skink or the ornamental snake. Yet the 2 animals are the reason why federal government approval has been withdrawn for the huge Adani Carmichael coal mine in central Queensland. Depending on who you believe, the decision is either a major setback or a minor delay for the proponents of Australia's biggest ever coal project. David Lewis reports.
It's here in Queensland's vast Galilee Basin that the Indian conglomerate Adani hopes to build Australia's biggest coal mine. At 45,000 hectares, the project would also be one of the largest in the world.
What does Adani mean to Queensland? A fresh stake in the global economy, a long-term investment in mining, rail and port projects. Adani means 10,000 jobs for Queensland workers.
But the Carmichael coal mine has faced plenty of hurdles, from falling commodity prices to strong community opposition. The Mackay Conservation Group launched legal action earlier this year, challenging the federal government's decision to approve the project last July. Now they've got the outcome they were hoping for.
We're happy that the federal court has today validated our concerns about the Carmichael process.
The court has set aside approval for the mine at the request of all parties, but the agreement was reached for different reasons. The Mackay Conservation Group says it consented because the approval process was rushed and breached the law.
The approval has been found to be invalid because it failed to follow Australia's environment laws, and it's very worrying that it's taken a case by a community group like ours to really show the flaws in this process and the rubber stamping that's gone on to approve this mine.
Green Senator Larissa Waters says the Environment Minister Greg Hunt failed to properly consider the potential impact of the mine on two threatened species, the yakka skink and ornamental snake.
Threatened species are important. Wildlife is important. Australians and Queenslanders are very proud of our unique biodiversity.
But the Environment Department is playing down the significance of the court order, suggesting it's merely a bump in the road. It says the decision to approve the mine was only found to be invalid because of a technical error that occurred when giving advice to the minister.
There's a possibility that the advice should have been provided in a particular manner. This is a technical, administrative matter, and to remove this doubt, the department has advised the decision should be reconsidered. Reconsidering the decision does not require revisiting the entire approval process.
The department will resubmit its advice in the next 6 to 8 weeks, but the bureaucratic bungle has infuriated Queensland's mining lobby.
This is a very dark day for all those who were counting on a swift go-ahead to the Galilee Basin projects, in particular the Carmichael project. The decision hasn't been revoked. It's been set aside because of a technical legal loophole. This is a legal loophole that the politicians have known about for some time, and they need to act on.
Adani has echoed those concerns in a statement.
It is regrettable that a technical legal error from the Federal Environment Department has exposed the approval to an adverse decision. Adani is confident the conditions imposed on the existing approval are robust and appropriate once the technicality is addressed.
Politicians on both sides are keen to see the matter resolved.
We're extremely disappointed that there's been this delay to Adani in the Galilee Basin. Look, you have to realise that this is a federal issue, and we ask the federal government to sort this out as quickly as possible.
We've taken more than 5 years to say yes or no to a $16 billion project. I struggle to fathom how come it takes this country so long to say yes or no to a project of that size. We've got to make a decision because obviously people have a lot of money on the line here.
If the minister approves the Carmichael coal mine for a second time, it still faces an uncertain future. There's been a massive oversupply of Australian coal in recent years, putting downward pressure on prices. And one analyst predicts the success of the project will ultimately depend on demand from India, where Adani is based.
Adani will certainly be looking at the future of thermal coal prices, and they will probably be suggesting that there is a brighter future, especially perhaps in the subcontinent in India, than we're perhaps aware of at this point in time. And they would be very keen to actually ensure that if that does unfold, we do see India perhaps calling on more thermal coal, then they would want to be in a position where they can in the future deliver into that type of demand.
David Lewis.